Hey, I'm Caley, and this class is yoga for low back pain. I've dealt with a lot of lower back pain throughout my life. I was a dancer and had a lot of issues in my low back because of it, and yoga is slowly helping me to correct those issues, but yoga done right. There are a lot of things in the practice of yoga that actually compromise your lower back. For instance, when you're twisting and your teachers are telling you to keep your hips in absolute neutrality, that's actually causing stress on your lower back. It's okay for your hips to tilt a little. Not a ton, because you do want to still engage your core and your center, and actually twisting and rotational movements should happen from the mid-thoracic spine. But when we're doing all of these things, we really need to be careful of the low back space, the sacroiliac joints, not stressing or straining them in any way. So you can really injure the low back in twists, especially using external leverage, like your elbow on your knee, to wrench yourself into a twist more thoroughly. So I want to focus on creating some core stability, not only front core, but side core and back core to help you support your lower back. So we're going to get started on our backs for this class. And as you come to lie down, make sure your knees are bent. Bring your back down onto the mat and just kind of wiggle around until you feel like your spine is in alignment on the ground and that you're comfortable. Now from here, we'll reach the legs up, keeping the knees bent. I'm going to have you cross the right knee over the left knee and flex your feet. So my legs are out wide to the side. I'm not going to use my arms. So we're not going to use external leverage to wrench ourselves into a position, right? We're going to use the strength and stability of our own body and our own muscles to help get into the position, find our end range of motion, and then and only then we can reach down and apply a little external leverage if it feels good. So with your feet flexed, I want you to see how far apart you can spread your feet from each other. So this opens up the low back space. Traditionally, this is known as a hip stretch, right? Cow face pose or reclined cow face pose gets into the glute med and the outer hip. But in this method, we're activating the muscles of the legs and the hips so much so that you should almost be shaking. You're working so hard here. Now what this does is it creates space in the low back, in the sacral area. It also evens the low back space out. So after twisting, this is actually a really nice position to do if you're doing some deep twists, because this will release your low back space. And we'll just hold here for a few breaths. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, and breathing out. It's also important to note that when you are having instability in the low back, that using the floor as a platform to support yourself is really helpful. And then from here, we'll just go ahead and unwind the legs and switch sides. So the left knee now crosses over the right, the feet are flexed, and we're gonna see how far apart we can spread our feet to opposite sides of the room. The low back space feels really good on the mat, and we'll find the breath, really easy, steady breath. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. And one more time, breathing in and breathing out. All right, slowly just unwind the legs. We'll rock and roll up to a seated position here. And now we're gonna grab a block and place it in between the knees. So separate your feet the same distance apart as the block, feet planted flat on the ground. Grab hold of the shin bones, squeeze the block in, and just lean back into your spine. And we're gonna round into the back body. So as you do this, you want to feel a stretch between the shoulder blades. Keep the spine really rounded. Stay holding onto the shin bones and let the heels slide towards your butt cheeks. So the heels get lighter and the spine gently comes down onto the yoga mat behind you. So you're moving really slowly here. Now go ahead and flex your feet and bring the shins up so that they're parallel to the floor here. And you can take your arms out wide to a T shape. We'll be coming into a twist. So the block will help us to stabilize the hips as we twist. We'll take an in-breath, and on the exhale, you'll gently allow the legs to fall over to the left, and your gaze will just stay straight up to the ceiling. So the block helps to stabilize the hips, right, so that we're not really just twisting from the hip. It forces us to twist more from the mid-thoracic spine, but I am still slightly twisting from the hips. When I stack my knees and my hips completely, I can actually cause more strain in the low back. So I'm just gonna release a little bit, separate my feet the same distance apart as the block, and we'll hold here and breathe. Breathing in And breathing out. Again, breathe in. Breathe out. And one more like that. Breathe in. And breathe out. All right. Now gently coming back to center. You can use the core to pull yourself up and just hold in the center for a moment. Kind of realign your spine. Make sure the low back feels good on the mat beneath you. And then we'll switch sides. So again, shins are parallel to the floor. Arms are out wide. And now we'll gently let the legs fall over to the right. And if your left shoulder comes up off the mat, that's absolutely fine. You might take the right shoulder and scoot it over a little further, and then the left shoulder might release to the ground. Now you'll notice my knees are almost stacked on top of each other, but not all the way. So the block is helping me to stabilize by squeezing in, and then that rotational movement, the twist, can happen from the mid-torso. And again, we'll take 3 breaths here. Breathe in. And breathe out. Again, breathe in. And breathe out. And breathe in. Breathe out. Now slowly come back to center. So again, just find your spine aligned on the mat beneath you. You can wiggle around side to side, forward and backward. Just like we came down, we're going to come back up. So grab hold of your shin bones. Push the shins forward into the hands to lift the head up. Keep pushing the shins forward. Squeeze the block. Bring your heels back down to the ground. And then slowly begin to tilt your pelvis. And as you do that, you can bring your spine up to a neutral position. Now we'll work here with a few rounds of a modified cat-cow. So on your inhale, you can lift the chest and pull the shoulders back, really gentle. And then on your exhale, you can contract the belly, round into the spine, and tilt back into your pelvis. We'll do that a couple times. So on your inhale, you squeeze the block, you lift the chest, pull the shoulders back. And then on the exhale, we'll contract the belly, round the shoulders, tilt the pelvis, and round the spine. Okay, now let's come back up to a neutral position. So sitting up, just take the block and set it to the side for now. Good work. We'll swing the hips over to one side and come onto our hands and knees in a tabletop position. And once we get into tabletop, draw the navel in and up. Tuck all 10 toes underneath behind you. Walk your hands forward about 6 inches, palms flat on the ground. Lift your knees off the mat and gently push the hips up and back into a bent knee, downward facing dog. So we're going to keep the knees bent here because when the legs are straight and the heels reach down, the butt cheeks tend to round down towards the heels. But this isn't helping our low back at all. We want to lift the heels up, bend the knees, and then lift the bottom of the butt cheeks up to the ceiling. So that's helping the back to stay in extension as opposed to flexion. Now keeping that, we'll step the right foot up to the top of the yoga mat, right in between the hands. And you might need to come up onto your block here. If you have blocks at home, you can place the hands on those. Otherwise, we'll come up onto the fingertips. Step the back foot in just about 4 inches, maybe 6 inches. And we'll bend into both knees. Not a lot, but just maybe 3 inches of bend into the knees. So from a straight leg, find that. Now with both of the knees bent and up on your fingertips, I want you to imagine the very bottom of your butt cheeks sliding back and lifting up to the ceiling. And once you've found that sensation, then I want you to see if you could find Cobra with the chest. So you're pulling the chest forward, the shoulders back, both of the knees are bent, the weight is even between the back leg and the front leg. We're going to hold here and breathe for 5 breaths. 4 breaths. 3. 2. And 1. Now we'll gently step forward to the top of the yoga mat, keeping the knees bent again. Bring your fingers to your shins on your inhale. Lengthen your spine, really gentle, stick the hips out and the chest forward. And on your exhale, we fold forward, keeping the knees bent the whole time. We'll do this again. Inhale, fingers to shins, spine is long, core is engaged, and then exhale, fold forward. Again, inhale, lift and lengthen. And this time on the exhale, we'll step the hands down beyond the fingertips. Bring the right foot back, stay high on the ball of the right foot. Take a gentle bend into both of the knees. And then imagine, again, the bottom of the sit bones, the bottom of the butt cheeks, lifting back and up towards the ceiling. Firm your outer hips into the midline of the body. Then see if you could find Cobra in the chest. So the shoulders pull back and the chest pulls forward. So the spine is an extension and not in flexion. And again, we'll breathe in and breathe out. 4 more. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in. Breathe out. Last time, breathe in and breathe out. All right, again, we'll step forward to the top of the mat. This time I want you to separate your feet wider than your hips. Turn your toes out slightly. And if you do have a block, we're going to take that block and put it behind you. And you can have it on the high level, on the mid level, on the low level, whatever is best for you. We'll start to bend the knees and come into our Yogi Squat. So you can adjust the block so that it's underneath your sit bones and your tailbone. And this takes a lot of strain out of the legs and hips and allows your back to be really long and spacious. Press the knees open with the elbows and then pull the knees back in with the strength of your legs. And just work on sitting tall with your spine, drawing the ribs and the belly in. Breathe for 3, 2. Now, on 1, push down into your feet and see if you could lift your pelvic floor muscles in and up. Keeping the lift of the pelvic floor, lift your hips up off of the block. Push down into your feet even more, and slowly we'll come all the way up to standing. Engage your glutes at the top. Feel the low back spacious with the glutes engaged. And then soften into the glutes and release your arms down by your sides. Okay, nice work. We'll just set the block to the side for now. Take a big breath, reach your arms up, and on your exhale, bend into your knees and slowly come all the way down, hands to the floor. Now, step the left foot to the back of your mat. Drop your back left knee down onto the ground. We'll shift the weight into the left knee as the right leg begins to straighten in front of us. Now, the left knee is at a 90-degree angle, and the right leg, the foot is flexed, will take a bend into the right knee. Again, think about the bottom of the butt cheek and sit bone lifting back and up to the ceiling. Keeping the right knee bent, slide the chest forward and pull the shoulders back. So you should be noticing a theme in every single position that we've done thus far, right? Working the spine in extension as opposed to flexion, and stabilizing the hips from a neutral place, helping to open up the back of the leg and hamstring and the low back space, because this is all connected, the entire posterior chain of the body. So go ahead and take a couple more breaths here. Feel that heel on the right foot pushing down, and maybe even imagine the ball of the foot pushing forward. And from this position, we'll gently and slowly rebend into the front knee. Now tuck the back toes under and lift that back knee up off the mat. Plant your hands down. We'll step back into bent knee, downward facing dog. With the knees bent, you can start to draw circles with your hips. So these don't have to be big, but just moving the hips around a little bit, moving the head of the thigh bone around a little bit in the hip socket, and then you reverse. You go the opposite direction. Now we'll come back to center. Step the left foot forward to the top of the mat. We'll drop the back right knee down onto the ground. Shift the weight back so that right knee is now at a 90-degree angle. Flex the front foot and bend into the left knee, that front leg. Now with the knee bent, take the bottom of the butt cheek, lift back and up, working your spine to more extension. Once you found that, pull the chest forward, finding Cobra. Draw the shoulders back. Imagine maybe pushing forward through the ball of the foot on the left side. Take a breath in and breathe out. Breathing in and breathing out. 3 more, in and out. 2 more, in and out. Last big breath, in and out. All right, again, slowly and gently we rebend into the front knee. Tuck your back toes under and lift the back leg. From here, step back into that bent knee, downward facing dog, and then slowly we'll bring the knees all the way down to the mat. Once you've got that, we'll sit back on the heels. So we're gonna be working with a twist, and I wanna teach you how to twist so that your body is supported, so that your low back is supported, and you can apply this to any other twist that you do in the practice of yoga. So for our purposes today, we'll put a block in front of the knee. You might need the block, you might not, but we're gonna have it there just in case, okay? And you can kind of play with the height once we get there. And from this position, you'll take your hands into a prayer, elbows wide. So the hips are gonna stay rooted on the heels. We don't want them to lift up. Take a big breath. And on your exhale, you slowly hinge just an inch or 2 forward. It doesn't have to be a lot. You'll notice already your hips want to lift off of the heels, so push the sit bones back and down into the heels to create a little bit more length in your spine. Now we're going to work with our rotation, our twisting rotation. So take an in-breath, and on our exhale, we'll begin to rotate along the axis of the spine, twisting to the right. Now, you only have to twist an inch or 2. It doesn't have to be a lot. The elbow will hover just above the block for now. I want you to make sure that you didn't crunch into the right side of the body to twist. So the right side body and the left side body should stay equal in length so that we're truly rotating and turning around the axis of the spine. And we'll hold here and breathe for 5, 4, 3, 2, on 1, gently place your elbow down onto the block. So now we have external leverage to force us deeper into the twist. So this is something we need to be careful with. Keep both of your hips rooted on your heels. Gently push down into the elbow and twist to your right, just about 1/2 inch deeper. Now you should be able to maintain this twist and lift your elbow up off of the block. Right, so we're working on our oblique muscles, the erector muscles, the front and the back core, and the side core to hold us here. If you're not healthy in your core, then you won't be able to twist, and you'll end up leaning and crunching to one side. Let's come back to center. Inhale, sit all the way up, and exhale, just release your arms down. So this doesn't look like a lot of work, but it's a ton of work. If you're doing it with me at home, you realize just how stable you have to be in your center. Not only the front, but the side and the back as well. So again, we're rotating, we're not leaning in a twist. Okay, so let's try it on the second side. Hands to prayer position. Keep your hips on your heels, sit up tall, take an inhale. On your exhale, we hinge from the hips, keeping the spine in extension as opposed to rounding forward in flexion. And we'll hold here for a couple of breaths, rooting the sit bones back on the heels. Now we'll start to rotate around the axis of the spine. So take a deep breath. And on your exhale, you begin to twist to the left. It doesn't have to be a lot. It could be an inch or 2. Notice that you didn't crunch one side of the waist and lean. Try to stick with that rotational movement. Breathe here for 5, 4, 3, 2. Now on 1, see how gentle you can place the elbow on the block. Keep your core engaged, keep both sit bones rooted on the heels, and use that external leverage now just to twist about 1/2 inch deeper. It doesn't have to be a lot. And you should be able to maintain that twist and lift your elbow up off of the block. Breathe. Good, now slowly come back to center, and then sit all the way up on your spine. Okay, just release the hands down. Lift your hips up and drop them down a couple times. You can push the palms of the hands into the crease of the thighs. Good. All right, set the block to the side. Swing your hips over to one side and bring the legs out in front of you. Now, keeping your knees bent for this. So this is another way to stretch into the back body, the posterior chain of the body. With the knees bent, we'll hinge forward so the ribs and the thighs connect. Grab onto the outer edges of the feet. Now again, I'm going to try to take the flexion out of my spine and move towards extension in the spine, keeping the feet flexed and the ribs connected to the thighs. I slowly draw the heels forward. My legs are really engaged. The muscles on the legs are active. You come as far forward as you can, keeping the rib and thigh connection and keeping your spine in extension. If you've gone into flexion or you've separated the ribs from the thighs, you've gone too far, right? Really be mindful that you're not pushing past your limit, because you're going to get more out of this and further faster if you do it the right way. So hold here for a couple more breaths. We'll be doing one more variation of this shortly. So in this variation, we have the floor against the legs. And in the next variation, we'll have the floor against the back. All right, slowly we'll come all the way back up. Take the hands behind you and gently help yourself to lower all the way down onto your back here. And once you get onto your back, we'll take the legs up to the ceiling. So if you live in a tighter body, your knees will be bent here. You're not going to be able to straighten the legs all the way out. And again, that's indicative, right, of tightness in the low back, because the whole posterior side is connected. So just be mindful, if you do need to bend the knees, that's absolutely okay. Take your hands, grab the back of the thighs close to the butt, so where the thigh and the butt meet. And you want to place the palms there and begin to push the thigh bones forward into the hands as you pull the legs in closer towards you with your hands. Your inner thighs are rotating forward towards the front of your yoga mat. As you pull the legs in closer, you should feel your sacrum area open up on the mat beneath you. So when you were in your forward fold before, in a seated position, and your ribs and your thighs were touching, you should know that when you're on your back, this is the max I can go without flexion in my spine. So this is showing my spine in true extension now, so that if I was to flip back into the seated version of this pose, this is how far I should go before I, get out of the posture and push it too far past my limit. So this is a really good indicator for you about where you should be when you're seated as well. Now, if you have more stretch, you could bring the hands to the back of the legs, keeping the feet flexed so the legs are engaged. We don't just want a passive stretch. We want to work here. And as you do this, you pull the feet in closer, you move your inner thighs forward. The tailbone could lift gently off the mat, but not a whole lot. You want it to pretty much stay connected to the ground. Breathe. Okay, and then slowly bend into the knees. With your knees bent, we're going to take one hand on each knee and push the legs away from you as you pull the legs in towards you. So my hands are pushing away as the legs are coming in. So creating some resistance. And then do the opposite. Grab the front of the shin, push the shins away from you as you pull with your hands on the legs in towards you. And we'll do that again. Pushing the thighs away as the knees pull in. And then opposite. Hold the front of the shins, push those away as the hands pull in. We're going to do this one more time. You should almost be shaking. You're working so hard here. Hands to the front of the legs, push as the legs pull in. And then do the opposite of that. Pull with the hands as the legs push out. All right, good. And then just release that. We'll start to draw circles with your knees. So we're going to move the knees in opposite directions. And then reverse that. Okay, really good stuff. And then from here, just place your feet down on the mat, just like we started class with the knees bent. We're going to knock your knees together and walk your feet out wide. So this is an amazing position to do if you have any sort of low back pain, because this opens up the sacral area underneath the back. Opposed to this, right, feet together, knees wide, this actually closes off my low back space. So if you're having low back pain, this is not a very highly recommended position for you to take, Baddha Konasana. You want to do the opposite. Knock your knees, walk your feet wide, and rest here. So feel your spine really spacious against the mat beneath you. Feel your tailbone, your sacral area really opened up. Take a couple breaths. Good. Now you can stay in this knock knee position for as long as you like. I love that position. I recommend taking that for your Shavasana instead of actually extending the legs out for Shavasana, especially if you are really experiencing low back pain. So my hope for this class is that you learned something, a tiny little piece of something that felt good for your low back that you can take with and apply to all the other classes that you're taking, all the other classes that you're teaching. If you have questions about anything that I did, please comment below and I will answer as many of them as possible. Reach out to me in any way that you want to. We hope to see you back here on Alo Yoga's YouTube channel, and thank you so much for joining me today.